In London, under a sky heavy with history, a flag was raised that carried far more weight than its fabric could bear. Outside the Palestinian mission to the United Kingdom, a quiet but momentous ceremony unfolded, a symbol of recognition, a gesture that has been more than a century in the making. Just one day earlier, Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced Britain's landmark decision to recognise the State of Palestine. With that declaration, the United Kingdom, once an architect of the unresolved questions that have defined this conflict, sought to step onto a new path. The flag-raising ceremony was modest in scale but immense in symbolism. For Palestinians, this was a moment of long-delayed justice. For Britain, it marked a shift away from decades of hesitation. The crowd that gathered bore witness to history being rewritten, or at least reframed, in the very capital where the Balfour Declaration was issued in 1917. That declaration promised a Jewish homeland, but it also sowed the seeds of dispossession for Palestinians. Today, in that same capital, another chapter was added, a recognition of Palestinian statehood. Hussam Zomlot, the head of the Palestinian mission to the UK, delivered words that resonated with both gratitude and gravity. He said, "In the same capital of the Balfour Declaration, after more than a century of ongoing denial, dispossession and erasure, the UK government has finally taken the long overdue step of recognising the State of Palestine." For Zomlot, this was more than diplomacy. It was the rectification of an historic injustice, even if only partial. Britain's recognition comes at a time of immense suffering in the region. In Gaza, hundreds of thousands of people have been forced from their homes amid relentless bombardments. In the West Bank, violence between settlers and Palestinians escalates by the week. International aid agencies warn of deepening humanitarian catastrophe. Against this backdrop, Britain's announcement offers Palestinians not a resolution, but an affirmation that their aspiration for statehood is legitimate, that their people deserve recognition, that their identity cannot be erased. But recognition is not without controversy. Israel's government was swift to condemn the move. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu described it as a reckless decision that undermines the possibility of negotiated peace. He argued that rewarding unilateral gestures emboldens extremism and makes compromise harder, not easier. For Israel, Britain's decision is seen as both betrayal and provocation. In Washington, the reaction was measured. The White House reiterated support for a two-state solution, but insisted it must come through direct talks between Israelis and Palestinians. Yet analysts note that Britain's decision could embolden American lawmakers who are increasingly vocal about re-evaluating US policy toward the conflict. The United States, long the central broker of Middle East diplomacy, may now find itself facing pressure from European allies determined to act without waiting for Washington's lead. Indeed, across Europe, the momentum is building. Ireland, Spain, Norway, and several Eastern European states have already recognized Palestine. France and Germany, while hesitant, face mounting domestic pressure to do the same. By making its move now, the United Kingdom has placed itself at the forefront of a continental shift, a Europe more willing to confront the stalemate of Middle Eastern peace. Yet recognition alone does not redraw borders or end violence. For Palestinians, the raising of a flag in London will not immediately open checkpoints or stop airstrikes. But history shows us that symbols carry power. In South Africa, international recognition of the African National Congress played a role in dismantling apartheid. In East Timor, recognition paved the way for independence. In this light, today's ceremony in London may be seen not as an end in itself, but as a critical step in shaping future negotiations. Within Britain, the decision has ignited political debate. Keir Starmer defended recognition as a necessary step toward a just peace. He framed it as aligning Britain with the moral arc of history and as a chance to play a constructive role in shaping negotiations. But opposition voices, particularly from the Conservative Party, accused the government of undermining Israel and weakening the UK's role as a neutral mediator. Within Labour, the move satisfies a long-standing demand from grassroots activists, unions and many backbench MPs who have campaigned for decades on the issue. It also distances the party from the ambivalence that marked previous governments, Labour and Conservative alike. Still, public opinion remains divided. Younger Britons overwhelmingly support recognition, while older voters often express caution, citing the potential strain on UK-Israel relations. For Palestinians in Britain, however, this was deeply personal. Families who fled decades ago watched with pride as the flag was raised. For them, it was a signal to their children and grandchildren that their identity is not invisible, their story not erased. At least someone has finally said we exist, one Palestinian mother in Ramallah told AFP. That simple statement captures what recognition truly means at the human level: validation, dignity, and a reminder that the struggle for justice is not forgotten. Internationally, Britain's move carries risks as well as opportunities. Israel may respond by reducing intelligence and security cooperation with London at a time when tensions with Hezbollah and Iran are high. But some argue Britain's recognition strengthens its credibility when calling for restraint and humanitarian aid. By formally recognising Palestine, the UK is positioning itself as both critic and partner, a delicate balance that could either open doors or close them. Beyond diplomacy, the act resonates in cultural and historical terms. London, the capital once associated with empire and colonial mandates, now becomes a stage for a reversal of roles. The city that once shaped Palestinian dispossession today acknowledges Palestinian statehood. For many observers, this is not just politics, it is history coming full circle. The ceremony itself was understated. No mass rallies, no grand speeches from prime ministers. Instead, a flag rising into the air, greeted with quiet applause. Yet that very simplicity added to its gravity. It was not theatre, but statement, not performance, but acknowledgement. In that silence, the meaning was amplified. Critics warn that recognition without action risks being hollow, without a path to end occupation, without guarantees for security, without meaningful negotiations. Recognition can become symbolic theatre. But supporters counter that recognition is the first necessary step toward any of those outcomes. One cannot negotiate over a people's existence, they argue. Recognition sets the table. Only afterward can terms be discussed. What happens next will test Britain's resolve. Will recognition lead to increased aid to Palestinian institutions? Will it influence European Union policy? Will it shift the dynamics of US engagement? These questions remain unanswered. But for now, the flag fluttering in London's autumn breeze is a reminder that the Palestinian cause is not consigned to the margins. As the ceremony drew to a close, those who attended understood they were witnessing not the end of a struggle, but a new phase of it. A flag had been raised, a statement made. Britain had stepped into a debate it helped create more than a century ago. The image of the Palestinian flag flying over London may not change realities on the ground in Gaza or the West Bank, but it changes the narrative. It forces governments, diplomats, and ordinary citizens alike to confront the question anew. How long can a people be denied recognition? And what does justice demand in the 21st century? In the end, history will judge whether Britain's move was symbolic theatre or a turning point. But for Husam Zomlot, for the Palestinian diaspora, for those displaced and dispossessed, today mattered. For them, the flag over London was not just fabric, it was presence, it was existence. It was a nation long denied, finally acknowledged. And as the applause faded and the flag caught the wind, one truth lingered. Recognition does not end the struggle, but it gives it a place in the world's conscience. From London to Ramallah, from Gaza to Westminster, the echoes of this ceremony will resonate for years to come.
In the same capital of the Balfour Declaration, after more than a century of ongoing denial, dispossession and erasure, the UK government has finally taken the long overdue step of recognizing the State of Palestine.